Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Straight Up with Steph. Today is such a fun conversation. It's not dental related, but it's about hair. Most of us have hair, right? And I bet you a lot of us don't know the very basics when it comes to hair health and scalp health, which is what we're talking about today. I learned so much on this episode. I cannot wait to share it with you. I've been really open with this, but over a year ago, I hit perimenopause. And one thing amongst like a million things that has changed was my hair. I was freaking out because my hair was getting thinner. It was falling out. I was noticing it in the videos that I do and in pictures. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm balding. Am I going to be bald in the next 10 years? Like, what the hell? So, me, just like a lot of us, I do it too. I turn to social media to learn about my hair and learn what I can do. I don't recommend doing that because there is just a lot of BS out there. I mean, we all know this, but I fell for a lot of things that were 100% scams. I wasted a lot of money and none of it worked. So I really wanted to bring someone on the pod who knows a thing or two about hair health and scalp health. And did you know that there's something called a trichologist? It's not a hairstylist. It's actually someone who's gone to school to learn about scalp health, how it grows, what things impact hair health and hair loss. When we talk about hair, we're thinking about like the hair, right? The pretty stuff, but really it comes from the scalp, just like teeth and gums. So many people, I mean, how many times have we been frustrated that people are just concerned about their white teeth and they're not paying any attention to the gums? It's the same thing when it comes to hair and the scalp. We need to start at the foundation, which is the scalp. And at least for me, that's not really something that I've focused on until today. So my guest today is Dorian. I've been following her for a while on social media and she's a trichologist. She answers so many of my questions today. I mean, we talk about shampooing, how often we should shampoo. Did you know that there's actually a specific way that you should shampoo your hair? And we also tackle some of these things that we see on social media, like what works and what doesn't work. Some of the trends that I've seen are using hair oils, also using silk bonnets or silk pillowcases, different hair care products. She breaks down all of that for us. She also talks to us about how diet and hormones influence hair health and what we can do once we start noticing our hair is maybe falling out or getting thinner or getting damaged. She breaks down some of her recommended products that we should be using both in the shower and out of it. Also, scalp treatments like massaging your scalp that really helps stimulate the follicles and promotes hair growth. Hair isn't something that's just there, at least for me. I have like an emotional attachment to it. So once it started changing and falling out, it was very distressing for me. So if you're having that issue or just curious about how to keep your hair and scalp healthier, this episode is definitely for you. I hope you enjoy my conversation today with Dorian. Hey, it's Steph, and welcome to the Straight Up with Steph podcast, where we have real discussions around health and life and just trying to be better at both. Hello, Dorian. Welcome to the podcast. How are you today?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing great.
Is it weird that I'm self-conscious about my hair today?
Don't be.
Oh my gosh, this morning I was like, okay, you have a hair podcast today. You're going to wash your hair and style it. And then I'm just like, Stephanie, no, you're not.
Hey, I kind of did the same
Who are you
thing. And I was
kidding?
like, nah, I don't have time.
Well, it looks great,
Thank you.
honestly.
Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're working with day 4 hair, did a little retouch, and we're good to go.
Oh, it looks awesome.
Thank you.
Well, I guess I mean, obviously I want to talk about you and what you do and your expertise, but I do have a question right off the bat.
Mhm.
I wear my hair like this a lot. And for those who aren't watching this on YouTube, I have my hair up in my high bun that I always have. I've worn my hair like this since I was in high school. And that was one of my questions. Like, are tight hairstyles bad or like heating the hair and doing it like curling it all the time? Are those things bad for the hair?
Yes. And I
Okay.
feel you when it comes to wearing a ponytail every day because I used to be a gymnast. I competed for the NCAA. So I did it for like 18 years. And so I
Oh,
had to have my
wow.
hair like pulled back tight for a long time. Plus, I
Okay.
used hot tools, especially early 2000s. Like you had to straighten your hair, right? And I feel like a
Yeah.
lot of us are now at the age, where we're like, ooh, I think I fried my hair off. I think I'm pulling my hair back too tight. And to answer your question, with heat, yes, hot tools are not good for your hair. They can cause
Okay.
that thermal damage. But what I always recommend to my clients is if you have to use it, like I do too, I use the Dyson Airwrap. I just tell people use your hot tool once a week. And when you use it, use a heat protectant beforehand and you should be
Okay.
okay. And then as far as wearing your hair up in a pony or something, a tight bun or anything like that, is try not to keep your hair in the same pulled back position every day. Like if you can kind of switch it up, wear it down, wear it kind of to the side, put your hair in braids. Like switching it up is going to help a lot, because what
Okay.
creates that traction alopecia is what we call it over time is the constant tugging and pulling in the exact same area. So that's
Hmm.
something to be mindful of, especially because the hair at the front of our face is so fine, and it kind of gets the most damage to begin with, just because like it's by our face, we're always pulling our hair out of our face, and so it can be, more frail. And then I actually have a hack though for people who wear their hair up in ponytails. It might be easier to see visually, but I'll try to explain it over audio as well. Is
Okay.
that basically like before pulling your hair, like if you whip your head upside down and you pull all your hair up into, the pony position, before that point, if you can section off the front like 2 inches of your hairline, if you could take like, a band over the front and just pull
Mhm.
that forward, stick it in your mouth or something while you put the rest of the hair up in a band, put a little mini pony up there, and then grab a second hair tie and attach the front to that same ponytail. What that does is it doesn't allow all the tension from the heaviness of your hair to be only on the front. It adds a little
Oh,
bit of tension to the middle as well, which tends to be thicker, stronger hair anyways. So that can help. It's not like a true fix, to do this every day, but it can help. And so, like whenever I go to the gym or put my hair up in a pony, I always double down and I try to make sure that those face frame little, delicate hairs get pulled up second. So that is a
okay.
tip. I recommend trying that out if you do wear your hair up every day.
Oh my gosh, I'm gonna seriously start doing that. And I've wondered that too. Like, is the hair different up here? Because I've got to where it's super thin on the sides and the temples,
Yeah.
and then right where my bun is, like right on the crown of my head. Like, is
Yep.
that different hair, or is it just because I've been wearing my hair like this for like 40 years
It's
or
that
30
is
years?
it's very that's exactly what I would expect from somebody who has their hair up often.
Oh,
It's the front
okay.
hairline, the temples, and right where like the base of your pony is. That's where the most like tension is as well. Um,
Okay.
but that being said, the hair at the face frame for everyone is always a little bit finer, more delicate, anyways.
Okay.
So it's a little bit of both.
Okay. So if I switch it up, like you said, and like do the sectioning thing,
Mhm.
will it get better? Like, will I notice maybe some growth?
You will, as long as you're working on your scalp health and you're, doing that, and then
All the
yeah, it
things.
should
Yeah.
improve. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
So, speaking of scalp health, I've been following you and I know you talk a lot about that. So, and when I think of hair health, I just think of hair. I don't think of the scalp, but that's something that you are an expert in. And is that what a trichologist or trichologist is like a scalp expert? Because that's what you are, right?
Yes. So a trichologist is somebody who is an expert at everything hair and everything scalp, particularly as it pertains to hair growth and scalp conditions. And people can go beyond and they can, focus on just scalp health or just hair care products, and they can kind of have their own specialties. But a trichologist is really honing in on that hair loss, hair
Okay.
growth kind of clientele base.
Okay. I was thinking too, I'm like, I wonder if this kind of parallels me because I'm a dental hygienist by trade.
Mhm.
And when people think of teeth, they just think of the teeth, right? They don't think of the gums. And that's what the dental hygienist is really an expert is the gums. And that's really where health starts. So I
Mhm.
would imagine it's kind of the same with the scalp, right?
Yep. Yep. That's exactly what it's like. And it's kind of a newer field in a sense, if you're comparing it to like dermatology. Trichology is it's been around for like half a century, and it's really starting to pick up more, especially in North America. It's more popular in
Okay.
Europe. It's starting to, work its way around the world and really build itself as an industry. But it's pretty cool to see, and I'm excited that more and more people are becoming certified clinical trichologists. And it's so important because, like, I'm trying to remember the stat off the top of my head. I want to say it's like 1 in 3 women and like 1 in 2 men are going to experience hair loss in their lifetime. Like, it's a vast majority of people at some point are going to be dealing with it. And so I think having those specialists out there that really understand it is important.
Well, and two, to help us me like navigate all of the BS that's out there on
Yes.
when you Google stuff, or I've fallen for so many things on social media and I know that I'm like, okay, this is 100% a scam, but I'm going to try it anyways. So I'm just glad that there's people like you that can just help us figure this out.
Yeah.
Cuz hair loss, it's not just so I'm in perimenopause, right? And my hair
Mhm.
has definitely changed and it's gotten thinner. And it's not just hair. Like it really affects your self confidence. I was like getting seriously depressed about it, like I'm getting
Yeah.
a little emotional just thinking about it. Like it means a lot to people. So, how does scalp health affect things like hair loss or hair growth?
Yeah. So scalp health is everything. And I think we don't learn about scalp health growing up, and we should. And I hope that the next
Yeah.
generation does, right? We don't learn how to, correctly shampoo our hair to support scalp health because why? I don't know. We just didn't, right? And I think that more and more
Yeah.
people need to understand that the scalp, I want people to think of it like the scalp is the soil to your garden with flowers, right? Your hair is the flowers, your scalp is the soil. You have to take care of that soil. You need to be able to water your plants. You need to provide the nutrients in the soil. You got to give that plant sunlight. Like your hair needs that too. And the vast majority of that comes from your scalp.
Hmm.
And at the end of the day, the hair growth cycle is hormonal based, and from a biological sense, it has those mechanisms. But the scalp itself, though it doesn't necessarily have to do with hormones in that sense of the hair growth cycle, what it does do for hair growth is it holds the follicles, it holds the hair itself in the follicle. And that can, if it has inflammation of the follicle, that's a biggie. That can cause your hair to weaken or thin or stop growing altogether. Same thing with product buildup on the scalp, or having an imbalance in sebum production, that's going to be on the scalp. Or maybe dandruff, seborrheic dermatitis. Those are conditions that occur when there are a fungal imbalance on the scalp. And so,
Hmm.
whenever there is some type of imbalance on the scalp, it will eventually impact the hair and the hair growth because of the way that it can, it's the environment, right? So, what I like to tell my clients is that, like we can do the best we can to support scalp health because a healthy scalp equals healthy hair and healthy hair growth.
Okay. So, basically, we need the follicle to be healthy and like open, right? So that the hair can come out of it, basically.
Yep.
Okay. So you mentioned the correct way to wash hair. I am sure that I'm doing it wrong. Like, is there a correct technique for hair washing?
Yes, there is. And this is one of my
Okay.
favorite things to teach people because it's just a fun way to show it. Unfortunately, I don't have shampoo on me right now to like show it to you.
Yeah.
But yes, so a little step by step of how to correctly use your shampoo. Regardless of what your shampoo is, this is how you do it. There's one
Okay.
caveat, and I'll get to that in a second. So, what everyone needs to know first and foremost is that shampoo is a scalp care product. Shampoo is not a hair care product, whether it's marketed like that or not. It is for your scalp. Okay, the purpose of a shampoo is to remove those impurities and cleanse the scalp. That's it.
Okay.
And if your shampoo runs down your ends, that's cool too. It can do a little bit of a cleanse, but it's not like you're rubbing it into your hair, right? So what you're gonna do
That's what I
is
do.
grab your bottle, yeah,
I'm
and
like, crap.
for a lot of these bottles too, shake it up if you haven't shaken your bottle in a bit, especially those more like naturally based ones. Just little
Okay.
side note there. Shake your bottle. Put about a quarter sized amount in your palm. Again, the amount that you use doesn't depend on how much hair you have. It depends on it's just for your head. So if you have a big head, sure use more. But like most people can use
Okay.
like
Gotcha.
about a quarter size amount. And then you want to just rub it in your hands after your hands are damp, right? Rub it in your hands. I teach my clients to do it for about 10 to 15 seconds. It totally depends on the formulation of the shampoo that you're using too, whether or not it will foam up or not. Don't worry if it doesn't foam up a whole lot because some shampoos don't, like, you actually don't need shampoo to foam to do its job. People just
Hmm.
like that as like an aesthetic. So it's in a lot of products. But anyways, rub it in your hands 10, 15 seconds. And then after it's applied like all the way over all of your fingers, that's when I say, okay, start where you have a part, right? Now my part's on the side here.
Hmm.
I would take my hand and I would plop it down and I would just like touch the scalp. And then what I would do is section your hair out, kind of move the hair over. shouldn't be like too complicated of a process, but basically you want to move your hair out of the way so you're able to apply what's on your hand directly to your scalp. And you're going to do
Okay.
that kind of section and section and section all the way over. And then whenever that shampoo is distributed all over your scalp, that's when you can take your fingers and actually like massage it in. Do that for like a minute or two, rinse it out. And now here's where this caveat comes into play is whether or not you should do this again or if you're good to go with one. The vast majority of my clientele base, I recommend that you do it twice. So
Okay.
you do all of those steps over again. Put it in your hand, emulsify, apply it to your scalp, massage it in, right? The only couple caveats here are if somebody's using a harsher formulation, like something that's purifying or has like SLS in it, something that's like, just a harsher kind of, it has harsher surfactants in it and gives it deep cleanse. And that person doesn't have a super oily scalp type. That's kind of the only caveat that I would recommend. Like you might not need to wash again. If you feel like you're getting a good cleanse without doing it twice, then you probably don't need to. But the vast majority of people do, considering the formulations that are pretty popular nowadays. And the vast majority of scalp types are going to be somewhere between, dry, balanced, and oily. And so most people should do the whole process twice.
Okay. And so we're massaging that in after it's distributed. You said a minute or two, right?
Yep.
Like that's kind of a long time, isn't it?
Yep. It's going to feel
Yeah.
like a long time at first.
Okay.
But I also tell people, hey, take this opportunity to just get your scalp massage in for the day. Because that's one of the things
Yeah.
that I do recommend is a 4-minute scalp massage a day. So it's kind of like works as that to promote blood circulation in your scalp. It's kind of a, two birds, one stone situation.
Okay, so scalp massage is legit then. Because
Yes.
I have been, that's one of the things I got like a little like massager thing and I used
Mhm.
it for like 2 days. And then I saw something that said, don't do that. And so I stopped using it, but it's
Okay,
good.
yes, let's talk about scalp massages because
Okay.
the science behind scalp massages, it's there, kind of. I would say, yes, it's there. There's two studies that I think are actually legitimate and have some substance behind it. And that's why I tell my clients to do it for 4 minutes. There hasn't been
Okay.
any science that has tried this for longer periods of time. But basically, what giving your scalp a massage does is it promotes blood flow and blood circulation. Now, every single follicle on our head has a little capillary, it's attached to our blood, which is really cool. And
It is.
what
Yeah.
that's for is the follicle itself needs oxygen and nutrients from our blood to allow the hair to grow. And so the more that the blood can reach and circulate into those follicles, the more oxygen and nutrients that it can actually, take in. And so over time, if you want to have the hair growth that your body, is optimized to actually grow, having some scalp circulation can definitely help. Now,
Okay.
where a couple of my tips come in with scalp massage that like there are certain devices I would avoid. There are certain ways to use a scalp massager. So I'm not sure what kind you have, but I think a popular one is just like a silicone one and it kind of just has the little spikes on it. I
That's
have one of those
exactly what it
too.
is with like a little handle.
Yep, yep.
And yeah.
So
Yep.
those are great. Now, I will preface that our hair is at its most fragile state when it's wet. And so when we use a scalp massager, if you're gonna use it in the shower, which you can use it on wet or dry hair with that kind of, that silicone one. If you're
Hmm.
gonna use it in the shower, just be very, very sure that you're using it correctly, right? Because you don't want to damage your hair when it's in that fragile state. Same thing, you should be using it correctly when you have dry hair as well. So,
Yeah.
how to use it correctly is actually very simple, but I think a lot of people mess it up. You're gonna take the silicone scalp massager, stick it on your head, and you kind of want to poke it down almost firmly, like hard, because when you
Okay.
move it, you want all the skin like on your head to actually move like with it. If you are just barely touching your scalp and you're kind of messing up the hair and the hair is kind of moving like this as you're massaging, that's a no-no. That is a big red flag. That
Okay.
is not how we should be using a scalp massager on our head because that is what causes damage on the hair follicle and like at the root, which we don't want, right?
So you don't
So,
want to be ratting your hair up.
exactly.
So that's probably a warning sign that you're
Yes,
doing
that
it
is
wrong.
definitely a warning
Okay.
sign. So what you'll do, stick it down pretty firm, move the skin kind of all over your head, take it out, and then apply it somewhere else and do it again. Don't be like
Okay.
moving it around your head, right?
Okay.
Yep. And then there are devices that are like electric out there. I don't personally like those ones because that is exactly what they do is they like knot up your hair and they rat it,
Hmm.
and it's kind of like it's counterintuitive because sure you can get blood circulation, but in the long run you're damaging your hair. So what's the point? You know?
Okay. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. Fingers
I
work
one
great too.
question about
I'm like, just
what's
clean
that?
fingers,
Fingers?
just use your fingers and it's
Okay.
fine. You don't have to pay for any, specific device either.
Yeah. Okay. I wanted to ask about frequency of shampooing before we move on. How often should we be washing our hair?
Good question. It's actually a very popular question. And I think that's because there's a lot of misinformation online. So, what I recommend people do as far as wash frequency, it depends on their scalp type. So, if somebody has a drier scalp, you don't have to wash as frequently. If you have an oilier scalp or you have dandruff or, some type of issue, then of course wash more frequently. It also depends on lifestyle. So, if somebody is working out every day, getting sweaty, if they have a really dirty, grimy job or something like that, where like your environment is just making your scalp dirty, then you definitely should wash more frequently too. My
Okay.
advice is usually anywhere between 1 and 3 times a week.
Okay.
But again, it depends kind of on the person's scalp type and their lifestyle.
See, and that's interesting because just before I hit this hormonal, mess that I'm in right now, I was washing about once a week. And then when all this started happening, my hair was falling out. Then I read like we've actually been lied to. That's wrong and we need to be washing it more frequently because of the scalp stimulation.
Mhm.
But then I hear just as much like don't do that. So it is so hard to navigate through all of this stuff.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, the internet, unfortunately, as much of a blessing that it is a platform where anyone can say anything. And that's
Yeah.
when us as a consumer finds it difficult to understand, okay, what is the actual answer? And that's why I like to do what I do because I have that
Yeah.
research scientist background and I love to figure out what are the actual facts and pertain it to things that I love. And it's so true. And I will say, if you are confused or any of your listeners are confused about how wash frequency, err on the side of washing too often than not
Okay.
enough. Because if you don't wash enough, that is where issues can occur. You can have a plethora of awful things happen to your scalp if you don't wash it frequently or cleanse it enough. And you can't really overwash. Now, if you have long
You
hair,
can't.
sure, a little
Okay.
bit, but it's better for your scalp to be clean than dirty at the end of the day.
Okay, no, that's great advice. Speaking of social media, like, is there anything that you keep seeing that you just wish would stop as far as trends?
Yes. Okay. The first one that just gets me, and it's been years, and I don't know why people still believe this. There are hair growth oils. They're not a thing. I don't know why people are marketing them like this, people and companies. There's no science behind a hair growth oil. Oil does not regulate or change the hair growth cycle. And I think maybe where the marketing gets a little bit iffy is that meant like what we were talking about earlier, how scalp health impacts
Mhm.
hair growth in a sense. A hair oil or a scalp oil might help improve the scalp's overall health, which indirectly is going to lead to healthier hair growth, possibly, depending on their internal factors,
Yeah.
But a hair growth oil is not scientifically backed.
Hmm. See, and that's one of the things that I felt, well, I almost fell for it.
Mm-hmm.
I almost did, but then I saw her, it was an influencer, and I saw her whole routine, and it was like 3 or 4 times a week putting this oil on. There's a specific, oh, and rolling too with like a micro needle thing, and
Mm-hmm.
then wrapping her hair in saran wrap and
Yeah.
like slept like that. And she did that 3 or 4 nights. I'm like, I know me, I am not going to do that, but that's complete BS, it sounds like.
Assuming the oil, yeah, I mean, to an extent, using a derma stamp
Yeah.
or derma roller, those are great because they do that like microcirculation. I will
Hmm.
say scalp serums are legit. Scalp oils are not. That might be
Oh,
something else
okay.
too that is misrepresented. I mean, heck, I've seen like huge hair care companies have a scalp serum, but it literally says like hair serum on there. So like the marketing of products is meant for sales, but that doesn't mean
Yeah.
that the marketing reflects the science or the formulation at hand either, which is
So what's the difference between a serum and an oil?
so the vast majority, well, formulations are very different. An oil is going to be
Okay.
oil based, a serum's usually water based. And then beyond that, the serums can have like really complex or intricate ingredients in its formulation, whereas oil is
Hmm.
usually just either one oil or a blend of some oils, but they're not going to have like the types of ingredients that a serum could sustain or have in its formulation, such as like, caffeine, melatonin. You're going to just have, specifically like for those thickening hair growth types of serums out there. Yeah, the consistency of it, water-based, oil-based is kind of the biggie. And then serum can have
Okay.
a lot more great key ingredients in it.
Okay. Any other trends that make you cringe?
I cringe at things
Well,
all
I
the
have
time though, so I
one.
should know. I should know some off the top of my head.
No, it's okay. If anything pops up, just let me know. But what about silk? I see a lot about silk pillowcases or like
Mhm.
these bonnets that people will wear before they go to bed. Is there something to that?
Yep, super legit. I sleep in a silk bonnet or satin bonnet,
Oh.
actually. I've been sleeping in one for over 4 years. And I will say, so I started sleeping on a satin pillowcase. Now, for your
Hmm.
listeners who are like, what is this? What are you talking about? Guys, this is like one of the best investments you can make in your hair. I'm not even kidding. It's a cheap
Okay.
thing to have. If you want to wash it, you just throw it in your laundry. And what it does is it really protects your hair while you sleep. So one of the types of damage that can occur to our hair is mechanical. And that's really just like friction, and that could be from brushing your hair, from using a hair towel, but it also occurs while you sleep. You're tossing and
Hmm.
turning, you're moving just a little bit on that pillow, and over time, especially if it's just a cotton pillow or if your pillowcase has some type of texture on it, that can cause those micro tears in your hair, which can lead to damage and frizz later on. And so I highly recommend sleeping in a bonnet over a pillowcase. I have both just because I bought pillowcases a long time ago and I like them, and then I have the bonnet anyways.
Hmm.
Personally, I didn't realize that a bonnet was so fantastic because I just, for like a year or so, I was sleeping on just the satin pillowcase and it was good. I saw a big improvement in my hair. And I was like, I don't need a bonnet because I'm already on a silk pillowcase, satin pillowcase.
Yeah.
And I just ended up getting one and trying it. And I literally woke up the next morning, jaw dropped. I was like, why have I not been sleeping in this bonnet? It just
Really?
helped me
Okay.
tremendously. And I think with people with longer hair, it can really help tighten that up and make sure that your hair is not whipping or laying on it, or if you have a spouse or an animal in the bed that they're not like laying on it, there's like these little things like that.
Yeah.
But the other thing that surprised me about a bonnet is that after I curl my hair, when I go to put my hair in the bonnet before bed, I'll like, if you're watching the video, this is what I do. I curl my hair kind of like into little ringlets on each
Hmm.
side, and I do that on both sides. Put it in the bonnet, and it really helps to allow those curls to last longer throughout the week. And that was like
Oh,
one of the
that's
biggest
legit.
perks that I was like, oh, this thing is amazing because it helps with so many things. So yes, that is something that I absolutely would recommend investing in. Now they're not that expensive, but it's definitely something that if you want to have shinier, less frizzy hair, sleep in a satin bonnet.
Dang, I'm gonna bust mine out of my nightstand. I know exactly where it is. I'm gonna wear it again tonight because I was like,
Yes.
"Oh, this thing's dumb." I like fell for something else, but yeah, okay. Well, that makes me feel good that there's something out there that's actually legit.
Yes.
So when we talk about hair loss, we've kind of talked about, like keeping the scalp healthy, but like what are some other things that impact that? I mean, I know hormones have a huge
Yeah.
role, but what about diet? I don't know if certain medications or certain medical conditions, like just give us a scoop on that.
Yeah, for sure. So there are a whole lot of things that impact hair growth. And you mentioned the biggies, it's going to be hormones, genetics are going to be the most
Okay.
popular. I don't want to call it popular, but the most most common. And male or female, especially as we get older, our hormones change, they shift, and that internal, world that we have going on inside of us with those hormones, if those shift a little bit, it's going to impact our hair. And especially if somebody has a family history of this. Now, it's not like, let's say me, a woman who has, let's say I see, a thinning part and I'm like, oh, what's going on? If I think about it, oh, my parents, neither of them have genetic hair loss. Well, that doesn't matter, right? It could be a far distant aunt. It could be, on my dad's side of the family. It doesn't have to just be like the women in my family. It could be a man with male pattern baldness in my
Hmm.
family that trickled that gene down to me as a woman. So it does cross, and it doesn't have to be every generation. It can skip generations. It can be kind of it's really anywhere in your gene pool. It can
Oh,
really
okay.
come down and it can be in somebody's genetics. And so hormones are a biggie for sure. Now, diet is another one. And I think that this is something that has a lot of misinformation online. And I kind of want to set the record straight when it comes to supplements, particularly when we're thinking of vitamins and minerals that people supplement to support hair growth. I'm a huge advocate of understanding the amount of vitamins and minerals that you're eating based off of blood work. First of all, actually figure out what your levels are to then determine if you are deficient in anything. If you're
Mm.
not deficient in any vitamins or minerals, there's no need to take a supplement because in our body, we can only absorb and take in X amount of each of those vitamins and minerals a day. If we intake more and it goes to excess, it doesn't just go to our hair and we won't like magically grow more hair just because we have more vitamins and minerals in our diet. I wish that were the case. That'd be nice. That'd be an
Yeah,
easy fix,
me too.
but it's not the fix. And so, when we see vitamins and minerals that are, thousands and thousands percent more than the daily value that you need on the back of a supplement label, that doesn't necessarily mean it's better for you. It could just mean that you're going to pee it out because your body cannot absorb all of that. And so, again, that kind of brings me back why I'm a very big advocate for understanding what you're actually eating in your diet, because those daily percentages, they come from a food-based diet. Like they're not, oh, you can only have that, you can have this much a day of this, daily percentage, but you have to have a supplement to reach it. Like that's not the case for
Hmm.
humans. We can eat, enough protein, greens, fruits every day to be able to meet all of those daily levels. And at that point, our hair should be good. And, a little bit of education on that point too is that our body, let's say we're sick or we just had surgery or something happened where like our body is just kind of weak and it's working through something. When we eat, all of those vitamins and minerals get absorbed into our blood and our body. And our body is so smart and it's biologically wired to survive that it will put those vitamins and minerals towards the bodily functions that we need in order to survive. So your, cardiac, it'll go to your organs, it'll go to those things that we need to live. We don't need
Yeah.
hair in our head to live, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So our body will not supply all of those vitamins and minerals, that we need directly to our scalp if there's something else going on in our body extra. And then also just on a day-to-day basis, like I said, like it's going to put what it needs towards those bodily functions that we need to survive first, and then it'll supply it to our hair follicles. So it's very important to be meeting at least those daily levels because that it allows your body to put that substance into your other functions and then to lastly to your hair follicles to support that growth.
Okay, so if someone is, well, I'll just take me for example. Back when my hair was like falling out, I felt like it was falling out. If I were to come see you for help or consultation, would you start with blood work to
Yep.
check on things? And then what are some red flags in that blood work that you would be looking at?
Yep. So what I would absolutely do, so I'm not a medical professional in the sense of like I don't do the blood work, but I will point my clients in the direction of where they can get their blood work done.
Okay.
And the vast majority of times I tell them go to your doctor because I want you to communicate this with your doctor and if anything else pops up like you should be talking to your healthcare provider about it. So yes, I tell them to get full hormone panel, to get a vitamin and mineral panel, and then depending on what we receive, now the vast majority of times the clients come to me, they show me their blood work, and then I go, you're missing like half of what we wanted here. Because the vast majority of times doctors just say, yeah, sure, here's your blood work, but it's just the very
Yeah.
basic, like
Yeah.
red blood cell count and things like that. So I'm like, here's a specific list. Do these things, and it's kind of crazy. The medical field sometimes refuses to like get blood work for people. It's awful. But long story short, once we do get all of those, I will take that in, and what I'm looking for is specific levels for specific things. Now, off the top of my head, I can't tell you. I have these things written down, all these numbers. But what I do with clients is we go, okay, are you deficient in anything? First and foremost, we look at that, and then we kind of also pair it with their scalp scope images. So I do virtual consultations. And so what I will do is I will mail a scalp scope to my client. They'll send me
Hmm.
those photos and I'll teach them how to use it, how to take pictures correctly, and then they'll send them over to me. So not only do I look at their blood work, but I also look at those scalp images. And then I also have them fill out a consultation form. So I get a whole lot of information about their hair growth, hair loss history, their lifestyle, everything that I would ever need to know. So I really have the full picture that we really look at. But blood work is one of those things that we do start with, but it's just part of it for sure. And then what I do with my
Yeah.
clientele is after we figure out what type of hair loss they have, or we figure out their situation, I put them on a recommended regimen, and then we track their progress over time. So like for me, right now I have a 6-month consultation process. So we have that first initial one. It takes about an hour for this Zoom call. And then we have 3 more appointments later on over the next 6 months where we touch base, we hop on Zoom again. If there was more blood work that they needed to get done, we analyze that. We track scalp scope images over time. We track their progress over time to really figure that out.
Okay. So I'm thinking of one supplement that I don't know how popular it still is. I know it used to be, it's called biotin. And people think taking that, or like collagen powder, they think taking that is going to magically like make them grow hair. Do
Um,
either of those things really help?
no. So
No.
they're okay. Here's the thing. They're both really good to support the scalp out skin, but biotin is a. You're right. So biotin's not, well, it's a vitamin, really, and it's usually infused in like hair growth supplements, which is a whole other topic. But
Mm.
biotin is, super common in those hair growth supplements, and it's often included in very high dosage. And, despite the fact that it's in almost every single hair growth supplement out there, there's little evidence that it actually helps people who don't already have biotin in their diet. Like, I've never had a clientele and I've never heard of a person who has been deficient in biotin. You need like a tiniest little bit of it in your
Hmm.
regular diet. And like I said earlier, you don't need an excess amount of any vitamin or mineral, biotin being one of them. There's actually a couple of studies that have looked at this like in depth, and they're unnecessary. Having like
Interesting.
60,000% of biotin in a supplement is just wasting your money, and you're just going to pee it out at the end of the
Yeah.
day.
Okay. So when it comes to products, like I always feel bad for patients as a dental clinician because patients go to the store. There's the toothpaste aisle. I don't know if you've been there lately, but it's insane. It's confusing, even to me. And like I know a thing or two. And it's the same with shampoo
Yep.
and conditioner. So if I'm going to the store, what are some maybe ingredients or types of shampoos or conditioners that are good?
So
And you
the
don't have to go into brands. I'm just thinking
yeah,
more like
yeah.
ingredients, I guess.
Yes. So I think that when we say a good product, it really depends on the person,
Hmm.
because what's good for me might not be good for somebody else. Personally, I have been using products on my scalp and my hair for the last 5 years, 5+ years now, that are more naturally based. They don't have silicones in them. Now, I don't hate silicones. I think silicones have a place and that they're amazing for certain hair types and certain types of
Okay.
silicones. It depends. I don't have sulfates in my own shampoo, but again, I am not a sulfate hater. I think that it gets way too much hate online, and there's definitely a place for them. Plus, it depends on the overall formulation. So, what I teach people, like in my certification program through the United States Trichology Institute, is that we learn about these ingredients, but we really need to take them into account from the overall formulation. Now,
Hmm.
not all of us could be a cosmetic scientist and formulate products, right? And most of us don't really want to learn about that either. We just want to know, okay, what is a good brand to trust? And I think when somebody starts doing their research to learn about ingredients, but I think that there's a whole lot of information online that talks about them being way more negative than they are in the formulations of hair care because of their concentration, you know?
Hmm.
And so I think and hope that moving forward, people are able to understand like a little bit more about ingredients, but also keep in mind that their concentration is not like what this crazy number is that this one scientific study said was bad for you. Because at the end of the day, every single formulation out there, specifically in the United States, like it has to go through a regulatory process and it has to be good. And a company wants their product to be good and to be, not harming people, because that would be bad for
Hmm.
business, right? And so I
Right.
think that there's a lot of bad rap out there, and every so often, every year or so, there's going to be a lawsuit here, a lawsuit there. But I think people need to just go, okay, but why, right? What is the proof behind these things to understand how this product is impacting people from a formulation and an ingredient perspective? So I don't know if I answered your question completely. And I think that, like I said, what's good for me might not be good for somebody else and vice versa. But, I think people should start off with understanding their scalp type. And then from there, pick a product that makes your scalp feel good. And if it feels good, why change it? And then the other thing too
Yeah.
is that if somebody out there is listening and they want help with understanding, or they want help with figuring out their product regimen, but they don't really want to do it themselves, there are people like myself out there who will help them figure out what the regimen is that should be, perfect for their scalp and hair type.
Okay. And that, yeah, that's kind of what I'm wondering is like, because I just think of me, I know this much, very little about hair care and
Yeah.
hair health and all of that. And so when I go to the store, is the $5 shampoo going to be just as good as the one that costs $50 that I get online? You know what I mean?
Mhm.
But I don't have the time to learn about all of that stuff and I don't really
Yeah.
care to. So for someone like me, I would just maybe reach out to someone like you who
Mhm.
knows more about it and then you can just help guide me, right?
Yep, exactly. And kind of on that
Okay.
note too of price point is that yes and no, a product might be like worse if it is less expensive, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it is. A lot goes into the pricing of a product. Part of it is how luxurious the brand is, where it's
Mhm.
being sold. Do they call themselves a professional brand, which is an unregulated term, may I add? Because bottle A and bottle B might have a very similar formulation, but bottle A could be $10 and bottle B could be 60, and it's just kind of how the product is marketed, who their target audience is, what is the aesthetic, that plays a lot into it. But also, there could be a reason that product B is way more expensive. They could have a lot higher quality ingredients in it that cost a lot more as well to create.
Okay.
So there can be some substance to the formulation needing to be more expensive, but oftentimes we find that it has a lot more to do with the marketing and the luxury of the brand to begin with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like handbags. I just think of handbags. You're not paying for the bag, you're paying for the brand,
Yes,
really.
exactly.
So what are besides shampoo and conditioner, are there other like at home things that you really recommend for most people? We talked a little bit about serums. Is there anything else? Because I know some people who have like a multi-step hair. It's like their skin routine has 10 steps and so does their hair. And is that necessary? Are there things that you recommend?
There are things that I recommend, but I don't think that everyone needs a 10-step hair routine.
Okay. Yeah.
So let's start with in shower products. So you're going to have your shampoo and conditioner. Now, okay, I will say not everyone needs a conditioner. If somebody has short hair, like a pixie cut hair or shorter, they do not need an in shower conditioner. They might need a leave in
Okay.
conditioner, but that's kind of the caveat when it comes to conditioners.
Okay.
So shampoo and conditioner will be, most people will have that as like their base, right? Now, what I also recommend in the shower is two other products. One is going to be a scalp purifying product of some sort. This, for me, I like to have a scrub. Now, if somebody has psoriasis or very sensitive scalp, they might not want to have like an actual scrub on their scalp. So having a purifying shampoo will work just fine because it digs
Okay.
at that exfoliation from a chemical level, not a chemical and a physical level. But I personally like to have a scrub because I like that like deep cleanse, once or twice a month. And then the other product that I do recommend is going to be a hair mask. Now, this is also going to be customized to somebody's hair type. There's a whole lot of different masks out there. The vast majority of them, now read the directions on the mask that you are using, but the vast majority of them, you can use them in between your shampoo and conditioner steps. Some of them, actually almost all of them, technically, you don't need to use a conditioner after. I personally feel like my hair feels better if I use a tiny little bit of conditioner after doing the mask anyway, so that's just personal preference because the mask is a deep conditioning product. So you're going to leave
Okay.
that mask on usually about 10 to 15 minutes and let that soak deep into all the layers of your hair. And again, depends on the formulation, but most of them are going to soak deep and provide that nourishment to your strands. And then depending on what it is, it might be more hydration based, more heavier hydration with some moisture. It might have some bond building material in there. It depends on what you need for your hair type. But having a deep treatment of some sort is going to be very important if you have long hair. And that's a maintenance product as well. So that's going to be something that you use most likely every other week or maybe once a week, just depending on how frequently you do wash your hair.
Okay.
And that's pretty much it as far as in shower products go.
Mm-hmm.
Out of shower, like a post wash routine, it really depends on the person's hair texture and how they style their hair. So that
Okay.
that can get a little bit more complex depending on how somebody styles their hair. I like to keep it simple. I have a leave-in cream that is a heat protectant, a leave-in cream, aka it's like lotion for your hair, and it has like a monosome technology in it, which is like a split end ender, kind of it helps to like anti-frizz. So I used to use 3 products, now I just use the one, and it's great because I like things
Oh,
to be
yeah.
simple. And that's just it for me.
Okay.
And then I Dyson air wrap my hair afterwards. But as far as products go, like that's what I do, and I recommend people to be more simple than not. But there are other styling products too, like mousses, gels, sprays, all sorts of things, depending on the person's hair texture and how they style their hair.
And I would imagine someone who's maybe styling their hair a lot or using a bunch of product in their hair, they probably want to wash their hair a bit more often, right? Because that stuff just builds up. And like
Mhm.
same with maybe dry shampoo. Like, does that just build up and you want to
Yeah.
get that out of there?
Yeah, it's true. So it depends on the person's hair. I think, people who put a lot of product, like let's say curly hair, who have like, let's say a gel or
Yeah.
something in their hair itself. It depends on if they're applying it and reapplying it throughout the week to really have that build up or not. It could for sure. Now, when we're talking about dry shampoo, that is a product that I recommend clients don't use more than once a week. I actually
Okay.
I help my clients work themselves away from having to ever use dry shampoo. It's not like an awful product, but it is something that like we shouldn't have to use if our scalp is working in the right direction of becoming healthier. We shouldn't have to do that.
Mm.
Now, it is kind of a nice band-aid if somebody is, let's say, working out every single day, but they don't want to wash their hair every single day, right? It can help kind of allow them to go every other day or every 3 days. But I also say, hey, if you're going to use dry shampoo, wash it out within the next 24 hours. Like, I don't want you to
Okay.
put it in and then keep it in for a few days because then that's just sitting on top of your scalp. Especially if that person needs to be using a scalp serum. If your scalp is dirty for whatever reason, having that dry shampoo causes a little bit of product buildup on your scalp to begin with because you're spraying it on there, or just having a dirty scalp or sebum, you're going to have over time a little bit of buildup. And you need your scalp to be cleansed of all of that in order for that serum to dig deep and actually really absorb to where we want it to. So that's another thing too, is like, okay, if you're using a scalp serum, make sure that you are washing a little bit more on the frequent side because you do want to make sure that
Okay.
you're getting the most bang out of your buck for that serum to actually do its job.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. God, I feel like I still have 100 questions for you, but I know we're running tight on time. Something I wanted to make sure to ask was just going back to the hair loss issue, things like Rogaine or I don't even know if I'm saying this right,
You're getting
minoxidil.
minoxidil.
Okay, what are your thoughts on those?
Yes, so Rogaine and minoxidil are hand in hand. They're good. I think that it's an option for people out there who are having, hair loss issues. Now, most of the time, it's going to be recommended by a dermatologist or a trichologist, but it is over the counter now as well. And so
Mhm.
it kind of depends on the person's hair loss like issue, like what is the actual reasoning
Like
that
what's
their hair is
causing
falling
it?
out, right? And so for
Yeah.
people who have genetic hair loss, and that should be diagnosed by a dermatologist, or you should be chatting with a trichologist about that to understand, like, because that's a serious type, right? If it is serious on that front with that androgenetic alopecia, then that's where minoxidil can really help be a good support. But the other reason that people use it is it can kind of like kickstart follicles back into their growth phase when people have telogen effluvium, which is not genetic, but it can be stress induced. It could be a lot of things can induce telogen effluvium, but basically, if anything stresses out your body and kind of makes your follicles like cut off that growth phase, your follicles will eventually come back and regrow, but sometimes they need a little like a jump start to your car. Like your follicles kind of need that
Yeah.
sometimes. And so that's where minoxidil can help as well. There are other alternatives out there that are not as harsh as minoxidil that I would recommend people, give a shot first. But if they don't want to, minoxidil is totally fine too, and it's readily accessible, and you can get it, like you can get it at Costco. It's over the counter, so it is an easy thing to find. But for some people, they find that it's a little too harsh for their scalp type. It can cause a little
Well,
irritation.
yeah, I've heard that, but then I've also heard like if you start it and it helps you, you have to be on it forever. And if you stop, you're going to go eventually back to where you were in the first place.
Yeah, yes and no. That's true. It's true if you have androgenetic, so male
Okay.
pattern or female pattern hair loss. That's true. And it would be the case with anything that you would take for your hair to come
Right.
back because you're basically like supplementing kind of the hormone. No, I don't want to get too technical there because it's not entirely accurate, but it's true that if you have androgenetic alopecia, you're taking minoxidil, you see improvement, then you stop taking minoxidil. Well, that's what's helping your hair grow, so your hair is not going to it's
Yeah.
eventually going to fall out again. But if somebody just used it to like kickstart, then they don't have to use it forever. So, think about
Okay.
like postpartum hair loss or if somebody, a student, let's say, had a very stressful, final exam and 3 months
Oh,
later
yeah.
they're noticing their hair, these things happen and that can kind of help kickstart their hair back into the hair growth cycle as well.
What were some of the alternatives to that you mentioned?
Yeah, so these are going to be usually a scalp serum. And
Okay.
what I would recommend is like if you're, window shopping scalp serums is to like pull up your favorite top 3 and then take a look at the clinical studies that were done. I hope that it has some clinical studies. I always say look at the science, what are the facts here? And if there's, great results, then it's probably going to be good. And then a couple of my favorite ingredients are Capixyl, that's a popular one. You'll see that in a lot of different scalp serums. Caffeine, that is becoming more and more popular for good reason. There's a lot of good science behind caffeine helping. And
Oh, interesting.
the newest one is not minoxidil, it's melatonin. Melatonin
Okay.
is another ingredient that I'm seeing a little bit more here. This is more on the newer side of science, but it kind of calms your scalp, but it also helps with the DHT regulation. And DHT is the byproduct of testosterone, dihydrotestosterone, and that's what affects our follicle not really getting what it needs from the blood. And that has a
Yeah.
lot to do with hair growth. And that telogen effluvium can be affected by that. And so, yeah, those are my 3 that I'm just like, yes, if you see a scalp serum with one or more of those, I would highly consider it because they're amazing and scientifically backed in key ingredients. Now, I will say caveat, key ingredients are phenomenal and there are good things to look for, but one of my bigaboos is that if a brand is really flaunting their key ingredients, but they don't have any scientific study or clinical, results to prove that the finalized formulation has results, then that's kind of a red flag because
Okay.
something could have a good ingredient, but that doesn't mean that the finalized product is that good for you, right? So
Okay.
that's kind of something to look for. Ingredients are great, but also how does the finalized product perform?
Okay. What's your take on Nutrafol? I see that everywhere.
Yes. So I actually recently did a very deep dive into hair growth supplements, and I have like a whole, I think it's like a 70+ page guide on all of these different. I dissected
Oh,
16 different
okay.
hair growth supplements, and 3 of them were Nutrafol. And all in all, I found that they have very good marketing. They do have some studies to back up their claims. Now, what I found on their marketing page of these products is that, and you'll see this on any marketing page, is like there'd be like a claim with a little asterisk. Okay. What I urge people to do is to read beyond the marketing. Go to the asterisk at the bottom of the page and read what is that claim pertaining to? What is that
Hmm.
study about? Right. And then, sometimes what I find with websites and marketing is that it's not entirely what the science says, or they word something in a way where it sounds really great, but they avoid a medical claim, which again is like, okay, it's good marketing for you. Good job. You
Yeah.
scooted around a marketing claim, but it kind of sounds like one. So we need to be really careful with that. But I will say I have a lot of respect for that brand because of the amount of R&D that they put into the science. I haven't seen in the transparency of that science. I
Hmm.
haven't seen other companies in that hair growth supplement industry actually do that. And I will say it's expensive, so that could be part of
Yeah.
it. But I think that they're a good leader in the sense that they want to show the science. And so I appreciate that from a brand perspective.
Okay. Well, that's good to hear. And I'm going to have to I want to learn more about the caffeine. I'd heard about caffeine a little bit, but not melatonin. So that's
Mhm,
really interesting to me. That's
mhm.
cool. Any new things that you're stoked about? Like, I don't know, microneedling or PRP? I've heard about that too.
Yes, so I'm actually really excited. So both of those things are great, and they've been around for a little
Okay.
bit. I am really excited for oral minoxidil to really get this next step of FDA approval. Right now, it's approved for, gosh, I can't remember off the top of my head. It's some heart disease or heart related thing. And dermatologists have been able to prescribe this, but I'm really excited for this to get more available to people. There's been a lot of studies over the last 5 years that are proving its efficacy, and there's a way to slow release it in the body so it doesn't cause any heart issues, but it can also give you
Hmm.
benefits for your hair. And so I'm really excited to see this come to fruition here, I hope in the next year or so, where we can have more of this oral minoxidil be available for people, because I think that that's going to be really helpful as well, because especially for those people who want minoxidil topically, but it maybe is too harsh for them. If they can take something internally, and it could be maybe over the counter or just somehow easier to get their hands on.
Okay. So I'm taking that. I tried, it was over a year ago when I was really just having all my issues and I was completely freaking out. And I tried the Rogaine and it helped, but I'm a very low maintenance person. And I'm like, I can't do this for the rest of my life. And I didn't like how it made it kind of greasy. I just didn't like it. So I saw a dermatologist and they recommended the oral minoxidil. I don't
Mhm.
know why I always have such a hard time with that word. And I think it is helping. But my mom freaked out when she heard that I was on it because of the heart issue. I mean, she's older, and
Mhm.
she was worried about the heart. And I was like, no, I don't have any pre-existing conditions. Like, it's fine. So
Yeah.
I think it is helping. But it also, I will say, I don't know if I should say this on air. It has increased growth in areas that I don't care for.
That's true.
So I'm
Yep.
just like,
It's a
I'm
side
just
effect.
always like messing with my chin now. But if that's going to help my hair be a little bit healthier, it's fine.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh, that's really cool that you've been taking that. I didn't know that. And yeah, that's exactly my point. You even made that
Yeah.
that extra step of I just didn't like it. Wasn't that it didn't feel good on your scalp. It was more of it was the greasiness, and you are low
Yeah.
maintenance, so you don't want to do that every day. And I know that popping a pill is just so much easier, to take it with your
Yeah.
breakfast in the morning than to go through a whole regimen of, doing that Rogaine. So that's really cool.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it is helping. So, but definitely anyone listening, don't just take my word for it. I mean, I was prescribed and I made sure that that I was okay to take it. So, Dorian, thank you so much for all of your time today. You gave so many tips. Is there somewhere where people can easily reach you if they want to connect with you?
Yes, absolutely. So Instagram's going to be the best place to reach me. I'm there all the
Okay.
time. My DMs are open. I will happily have conversations or answer questions that people have. And my Instagram is I'll probably maybe type it somewhere on this podcast
I'll put it in
eventually.
the show notes.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. We'll put it in the show notes. But yeah, it's at Dorian_Marie_hair. And that's also my TikTok as well. I'm on there. I don't DM a whole lot on there. I don't really like the platform for DMing. I do prefer Instagram for that. But I do have a pretty large community, and I post over there frequently as well. And then I have my website, dorianmariehair.com, with dashes in between as well. And
Okay.
the website is a good spot to really understand. I have a lot of free resources on there,
You
or
do.
other
Yeah.
things on there that people like to do. So it's a good spot to start.
Yeah, I'll make sure to link all of that in the show notes. And I've signed up for I got at least one free download, and I'm on your email list. And I just want to say I don't ever feel spammed when you email because your emails are just like information that I need. So, anyways, highly recommend.
Ah, thank you.
Thank you again so much for your time. And thank you everyone for listening. We will see you next time.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of Straight Up with Steph and being interested in living better. What many listeners do is subscribe to the podcast because that allows them to automatically get the latest episodes of the show. Remember, you are the best person to take care of you, and by learning what we talk about on this show, you're taking one more step to being a healthier and happier you. I'll talk to you soon.